have a story etched in my memory, an event from 2010. When I was 16, at the time, I, along with my little brother and 2 friends, lived in a freshly developed neighborhood. My family had moved into a fully furnished model home, and my friends resided in the adjacent model home. With only about 10 houses constructed in the entire neighborhood, it was dimly lit at night, despite having a sizable park at the end of our street. A mile beyond the park stood an elementary school, where we often walked to play basketball on the court after hopping the fence. One evening, around 8 p.m., my brother, friends, and I decided to take a stroll to the school. By the time we finished playing basketball and headed back toward the park, it was already dark, setting a slightly eerie tone. The route from the school to the park was a long, unlit road, contributing to the creepy atmosphere. As we reached the park's sidewalk, there was a solitary metal bench illuminated by a street lamp directly above it. Our secluded neighborhood meant we recognized everyone, making what happened next incredibly unsettling. It was around 10 p.m. when we came to a sudden stop on the park's curvy sidewalk. We were staring at the bench, bathed in light, where a mysterious figure dressed entirely in black, with a hooded trench coat covering half of their face, was crouched. No belongings, no phone, just an eerie presence at the end of the night. The figure turned to face us, but the shadows prevented us from seeing any features. What happened next was downright chilling. Slowly, she stood up, maintaining eye contact with us, and started walking sideways toward us. Frozen in shock, we stood about 15 to 20 feet away, feeling an overwhelming sense of fear. When she got within 5 to 7 feet, she turned directly towards us, head down, face still concealed. Without hesitation, we bolted, running for our lives back to my house. Panting and petrified, we couldn't articulate what had just transpired. The fear lingered, and even as we calmed down and eventually went to sleep, the incident was far from over. The following day, in the early afternoon, we gathered again, walking down to the park in broad daylight to reassure ourselves. However, what we found on that same bench was beyond belief. A wild rabbit, cleanly severed down the middle, as if surgically cut. No blood, no signs of decay, just a fresh, unnerving kill. It left us questioning the purpose of the hooded figure's presence the night before. Was she even human? What could have happened if she got any closer to us? A decade later, the mystery still haunts me, sending shivers down my spine and a peculiar feeling in my stomach whenever I recall that chilling night. Before moving to the next story, if you are enjoying the video, so become a VIP viewer. Hit the subscribe button, press the bell icon, and enjoy exclusive stories. Don't forget to like and share the video with your friends. The date was November 4th, and the air was crisp with the scent of fallen leaves as I found myself stranded at the old bus terminal. The place was far removed from the hustle and bustle of the city, situated on the outskirts, making it seem like a forgotten relic from a bygone era. The terminal, a crumbling structure with peeling paint and rusted benches, was a stark contrast to the modern bus stations I was used to. Its grim appearance sent shivers down my spine, and it was clear that it had seen better days. I had been waiting for the late-night bus for hours, and impatience had started to give way to unease. The dimly lit overhead bulbs cast eerie shadows on the cracked, mosaic-tiled floor. I clutched my backpack, the straps digging into my shoulders, as I watched the minutes tick away on my wristwatch, its faint glow the only source of comfort in the unsettling darkness. The terminal was empty, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The silence was so oppressive that I could hear the heart pounding in my ears. The only sound was the distant cooting of an owl, a haunting serenade to my solitude that made me feel like I was the last living soul in that desolate place. As I tried to focus on a novel I had brought with me, I couldn't help but feel a growing sense of dread. The pages blurred as my mind was consumed by the unsettling atmosphere. That's when I heard the faintest whisper, like the rustling of dry leaves in the wind. I strained to listen, and the whispers grew louder, but the words remained indecipherable, lost in a cacophony of unsettling murmurs that seemed to emanate from the very walls. My heart began to race, and I looked around the terminal, searching for the source of the unsettling sound. I was alone, or so I thought. The whispers ceased abruptly, only to be replaced by a guttural, twisted laugh that seemed to come from all directions at once. It was as if the very air around me had turned malevolent, wrapping me in an otherworldly embrace. A dim figure emerged from the shadows, stumbling towards me. It was a man, his tattered clothing barely clinging to his emaciated frame, his face hidden behind a curtain of matted, greasy hair. He mumbled incoherently, and as my eyes adjusted to the dim light, I saw that he was not alone. More figures, equally disheveled and menacing, lurked in the darkness like wraiths, their eyes gleaming with an unholy fervor. My instinct was to flee, to escape the surreal horror unfolding before me. I snatched up my backpack and sprinted toward the exit, my footsteps echoing off the walls in a frantic rhythm. The figures pursued me with relentless determination, their disjointed laughter sending a shiver down my spine that seemed to reach into the very core of my being. I burst out of the terminal, gasping for breath, my heart pounding. I kept running until I stumbled upon a dimly lit gas station in the distance. The attendant, a weary man with a kind face, called the police for me. They'd arrived within what felt like an eternity, but when they returned to the bus terminal, it was empty, devoid of any sign of the menacing figures that had haunted my nightmares. To this day, I have no answers. I don't know who those people were, what they wanted, or where they vanished. The memory of that night still haunts me, and I often find myself wondering if I had encountered something otherworldly in that desolate bus terminal. The sense of realism in that place still lingers in my memory, leaving me with an enduring sense of unease. The police investigation that followed led to no conclusions. The terminal remained as it was, a place tainted by an unexplainable terror that hung in the air like an invisible miasma. The news and local rumors painted a sinister picture of the terminal's history, citing mysterious disappearances and ghostly sightings dating back decades. I became obsessed with uncovering the truth, scouring archives, and interviewing anyone with information. The more I delved into the twisted history of that bus terminal, the more my sense of reality blurred. Some believed it was cursed, others said it was a portal to the unknown. My relentless pursuit of answers only deepened my own unease, and the nightmares that haunted my sleep became more vivid and terrifying. I was 19 years old. I hadn't lived with my parents for 3 years by that point, but I would visit for a few days or a week at a time. This particular house where they lived had a weird trait about it. Somehow, no matter how much noise there was, the house was always dead quiet. The first time I visited this house, my brother Michael said to me, "This house is haunted by something." I asked him, "What's going on?" He and my other brother, Daniel, told me that they always heard tapping in the walls of their room and that the bedroom door would be open when they turned their backs, when they woke up, or when no one else was home except for Josh, the man they lived with. Josh was a bit mentally disturbed, but he wasn't unstable. He was also very friendly. He had strange habits, like sharpening knives all the time, but he was a good person. I had witnessed the bedroom door opening itself twice during my short visits. The closet was huge, so I decided to sleep in there one night. I got my setup ready, but as soon as I fell asleep, the door opened. It latched well, but it never stayed closed. I saw it open itself twice while I was in there. Michael and Daniel also told me that when they were in the basement, it felt like someone was watching them from outside the window. It was also pretty cold down there, but I could have chalked that up to the winter cold. They also said that they often heard people coming up the stairs, even when no one was there. I moved upstairs to sleep after I got sick of the door to the downstairs room opening on its own. I heard creaks on those stairs more days than I actually stayed at that house. well over 20 times. One night, I was lying in bed with the lights on. I fell asleep, but then I woke up and the lights were off. I was having sleep paralysis. I remember clearly not closing my eyes when the transition from light to dark happened, and it seemed like the dark room had a different layout. I couldn't move, and the silence was deafening. Then I heard a rumbling noise that got louder and louder. There was something standing near the door in my sleep paralysis nightmare. It felt like it got closer as the rumbling sound got louder. Then, just like when I fell asleep, the lights all of a sudden came back on. I'm not a light sleeper, but this time I woke up immediately with my eyes wide open. I looked out the window and saw the bright midday sun. I got out of bed and went for a walk. The last thing that happened to me in that house was when I was walking down the stairs to the basement and a cat ran up the stairs. It was a real cat. My parents had told me to get the stray cat out because it got in the house a lot. I put the cat outside and then looked back down the stairs. I saw a black blur run down the stairs. Likewise, I said, "Yeah, I'm all right. No basement for me." Josh seemed less sociable when I left. My parents said that before they left, he was sitting on the couch and said he was going to miss everybody being there. Josh once shot up heroin, using his own urine to shoot up. He said that he didn't like being there alone, and he even tried paying my dad to stay, but my parents didn't want to be there either. I felt bad for Josh then, and I felt terrible when he died. He died not even a couple of weeks later. May Josh rest in peace. He was a good man, just misunderstood. He knew, just like we did, that the house was bad, but he had the worst of it. Furthermore, he did shoot up with his own pee, but he survived long after. That house had to have taken him too. He was more than scared to be there alone. I believe that the house was haunted by something dark and malevolent. It was something that preyed on Josh's mental health and his addiction. It was something that drove him to the brink of insanity and then death. I don't know what it was, but I know that it was real.